First Story, by Sarah Johnson. I was driving back from a friend's house one summer night in Louisiana. The moon was hidden behind a thick layer of clouds, casting an unsettling darkness on the desolate backroads. My car's headlights cut through the obscurity, revealing the narrow, winding path ahead. As I continued down the road, I noticed a faint glow in the distance. Curiosity piqued, I slowed down to investigate. What I saw sent shivers down my spine. An old, dilapidated house stood alone in the middle of nowhere, its windows shattered and walls covered in ivy. The place looked like it hadn't seen life in decades. Unable to resist the pull of morbid fascination, I parked my car a safe distance away and decided to explore the eerie building. Armed only with my phone's flashlight, I cautiously approached the decrepit structure. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and every step echoed eerily in the silence. As I entered the house, the creaking floorboards beneath my feet felt like a chorus of ghostly whispers. I made my way through the darkened rooms, the dusty air making it hard to breathe. The walls were adorned with faded photographs, and I couldn't help but wonder about the lives that had once thrived here. Just as I was about to leave, I heard a faint noise coming from the basement. It sounded like muffled voices and shuffling. My heart raced as I descended the rickety stairs, the darkness enveloping me. At the bottom, I discovered a small room filled with candles and bizarre symbols scrawled on the walls. In the center of the room, a group of people in tattered clothing stood huddled together, chanting in an unintelligible language. Panic overcame me as I realized I had stumbled upon something sinister. I retreated, careful not to make a sound, and rushed back to my car. I sped away from that forsaken place, my mind racing with fear and disbelief. I had no doubt that I had narrowly escaped a terrifying encounter with a group of people engaged in who knows what dark ritual. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that I witnessed something otherworldly that night, hidden away in the depths of the Louisiana backwoods. Second Story, by Mark Anderson. I had always been an adventurous soul, so when the opportunity arose for a solo road trip through the heart of Nevada, I jumped at the chance. The vast desert landscape, with its endless stretches of highway, seemed like the perfect backdrop for a journey of self-discovery. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself on a desolate road in the middle of nowhere. My car's engine hummed in the silence, and the eerie isolation sent shivers down my spine. The road ahead was long and straight, flanked by nothing but barren desert. As I drove, I couldn't help but notice a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. They seemed to be gaining on me, and a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. I increased my speed, but the headlights drew nearer, casting an unsettling glow in my mirror. I took a sharp turn onto a side road, hoping to lose my pursuer, but the headlights continued to follow. Panic set in as I realized there was no escape. My mind raced, and I contemplated calling the police, but the desolation of the desert meant that help would be a long time coming. Suddenly, the headlights veered to the side of the road, and a tall figure emerged from the car. It was a man, clad in dark clothing, with a hat pulled low over his eyes. He began to approach my car, his movements slow and deliberate. I locked my doors and prepared to defend myself, but as he drew closer, I noticed something chilling. His face was obscured by a mask, and he carried a knife in his hand. Panic surged through me as I realized the danger I was in. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and sped away, leaving the menacing figure behind. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of a well-lit gas station, where I called the authorities. To this day, I have no idea who that masked man was or what his intentions were. All I know is that my solo road trip through Nevada took a terrifying turn that night, and I'm grateful to have escaped with my life. Third story, by Emma Carter. I was on a road trip with my boyfriend Chris through the dense forests of Oregon. We had always been drawn to the beauty of the Pacific Northwest, and this adventure was meant to be a celebration of our love. However, what started as a romantic getaway soon turned into a nightmarish experience. One evening, as darkness fell, we found ourselves driving along a narrow, winding road deep within the forest. Tall trees loomed overhead, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance in the dim moonlight. The air was thick with tension, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. As we continued down the road, strange things began to happen. Unearthly sounds echoed through the trees' whispers, rustling leaves, and distant cries that sent shivers down our spines. Chris and I exchanged nervous glances, our imaginations running wild. Then, the car's headlights began to flicker, casting us into darkness for brief moments at a time. Chris tried to reassure me, blaming it on a faulty electrical system, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister was at play. Just as my anxiety reached its peak, we encountered a thick fog that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. It enveloped the car, reducing visibility to nearly zero. Panic set in as Chris struggled to navigate the treacherous road. In the midst of the fog, I saw fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures darting between the trees. They moved with unnatural speed, and I couldn't make out their features. Fear gripped me, and I begged Chris to turn back, but he insisted on pressing forward. Suddenly, the fog lifted as quickly as it had descended, and we found ourselves on a desolate stretch of road. It was as if the forest itself had swallowed us whole and spat us out into another realm. The car's headlights were steady once more, and the strange sounds had ceased. We continued our journey in stunned silence, eventually reaching a remote cabin where we decided to spend the night. We never spoke of the eerie forest drive again, but the memory of that night haunts my dreams to this day. Fourth story, by James Mitchell. I had always been fascinated by the vastness of the Nevada desert, so when the opportunity arose for a solo road trip, I eagerly packed my bags and set off into the wilderness. The starlit night sky stretched out before me, casting an otherworldly glow over the arid landscape. As I drove deeper into the desert, the road became increasingly desolate. The only signs of life were the occasional distant headlights, which I assumed belonged to fellow travelers. That assumption would soon prove to be dangerously wrong. Around midnight, as I rounded a bend, I saw a cluster of vehicles parked haphazardly on the side of the road. Curiosity got the better of me, and I slowed down to see what was going on. What I witnessed sent a chill down my spine. A group of men, all armed and clad in military-style gear, surrounded a small, makeshift camp. They appeared to be in the midst of an intense argument. I couldn't make out their words, but their aggressive body language and raised voices left no doubt that something was amiss. Fear gripped me as I realized that I had stumbled upon a potentially dangerous situation. I considered turning back, but before I could make a move, one of the men spotted my car. He pointed in my direction, and the others turned to look. Panic surged through me as I hit the gas pedal and sped away, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that those armed men meant trouble, and I had no intention of finding out what they were up to. I drove for miles, the adrenaline coursing through my veins, until I finally reached a small town where I could safely call the authorities. I reported what I had seen, but I never learned the outcome of that late-night encounter in the Nevada desert. To this day, I wonder what those armed men were doing out there, and what might have happened if I had stayed to find out. Fifth Story, by Olivia Walker. I had just finished a late shift at the diner in rural Pennsylvania where I worked. It was a moonless night, and the backroads that led to my apartment were shrouded in darkness. The only source of light was my car's headlights as they cut through the obscurity. As I drove along the winding road, a sinking feeling of unease settled in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw a car tailing me, its headlights glaring menacingly. I sped up, hoping to lose my pursuer, but the car behind me matched my every move. Panic set in as I realized that this wasn't a mere coincidence. Someone was deliberately stalking me. Desperate for help, I dialed 911, and the dispatcher assured me that the police were on their way. But as I continued to drive, I realized that the police were still minutes away, and I couldn't outrun my stalker for that long. My heart pounded in my chest as I took a sharp turn onto a side road, hoping to lose my pursuer in the labyrinthine network of rural routes. But the car stayed on my tail, relentless and unwavering. As I approached a deserted stretch of road, I saw my chance. I slammed on the brakes and skidded to a halt, hoping to catch my stalker off guard. To my horror, the car behind me also came to a stop, and a man emerged, his face obscured by a mask. With no other options, I grabbed a tire iron from my car and confronted the man as he approached. We stood there in the darkness, locked in a tense standoff. The minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. Finally, the sound of sirens in the distance broke the silence, and my stalker fled into the night. The police arrived moments later, and I gave them a description of the man and his car. They assured me they would do everything in their power to find him. To this day, I live in fear, knowing that my routine night drive through rural Pennsylvania turned into a terrifying encounter with a relentless stalker. I can only hope that the police will catch him before he has a chance to strike again. Thank you for watching whole video. Check this video you see on the screen, it's one of my favorite. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash that like to support my free and daily content for you. If you enjoyed this video, drop a comment and tell me what story got you chills.